I like Chase, but he doesn't feel the same about me. And that just makes me like him even more. My friends keep telling me to move on and like someone else. So painful, right? When a guy loves a woman who doesn't love him back, he'll try to force his way into her life, lock her down. But when a woman loves a man who doesn't return her feelings, she becomes the tragic heroine, begging for his love. Well, not me. I'm all about taking control in love. My marriage to Chase? Totally my idea. On our wedding night, Chase came out of the bathroom and saw me sitting on the bed. He seemed to hesitate, then said, "You should get some rest." And with that, he left the room. I didn't say anything. I just waited quietly. Sure enough, 1 minute later, Chase came back. "Lana, where's the guest room bed?" "I had it moved," I said, my tone firm. For a moment, Chase didn't know how to respond. "Before the wedding, you promised me you'd listen to me," I continued. "Are you backing out now?" He sighed deeply, furrowing his brows. "Lana, you might not understand men. Even if I have no feelings for you, I still have physical reactions. I don't want to do anything I'll regret," he added. "Think carefully, don't end up regretting it." I seemed to get what he meant, but I glanced at my silk nightgown. I couldn't help but think, wow, my legs look amazing, slender and fair. "You don't really understand women either, Chase," I said. "Being with a man who doesn't love me? It's just repulsive." I even complimented him a little just to irritate him. "You're good looking, but it doesn't matter." "Chase," I smirked, "it's just sleeping in the same bed. We're not doing anything crazy. Are you telling me you can't even handle that?" Chase exuded a calm, collected vibe. It was like no matter what happened, he could sit back, sip his tea, and watch everyone else run around like chickens with their heads cut off. He'd probably even say, "Why are you running? We're all going to die anyway." From a distance, he looked like a fearless warrior, but up close, he was just a mess. Every time I saw that calm, fake demeanor of his, I wanted to tear it apart. "Lana," Chase said, "we agreed 1 year, then we're done. Don't go too far." "But it's not even been a year yet," I replied, grinning. Chase turned to leave the room. "I'll sleep on the couch tonight." I grabbed my phone and said, "If you leave, I'll call Aunt Lynn and tell her what's going on." Chase stopped in his tracks. Aunt Lynn had given him an earful before leaving. "I told you not to be with Mira, but you didn't listen. You had to marry her. And look at what happened, she ran off with her ex at the wedding. You think that's funny? If it weren't for Lana, we would have lost all our family's face. You better treat Lana well. If you turn her first marriage into a second one, I'll slap you silly." Mira was Chase's childhood sweetheart, the one he was supposed to marry. I tried to comfort him. "It's okay. If you can't handle it, you can sleep on the floor. I'm taking the bed." I pulled the blanket over me and settled in, satisfied. A moment later, Chase, clearly exhausted, crawled into bed on the other side. Chase, being a first-time groom and not marrying the person he loved, was struggling to accept that he was already married, let alone sleeping with someone he didn't feel anything for. He tossed and turned all night. Seeing me sleep peacefully by his side, he thought to himself that I was the one with no worries. I half awake heard someone calling my name. "Wake up, this is annoying." I really hated being disturbed when I was sleeping, but since Chase was the man I loved, I had to be understanding. "Chase," I said, half asleep, "if you can't sleep, neither can I." When I threatened to kiss him, he immediately quieted down. Then I reminded him that I had a meeting the next morning and needed to be up at 6. "Make sure you wake me up." Chase seemed flustered. Chase finally gave in and stayed on the other side of the bed, unable to fall asleep. He was clearly struggling with the whole situation, and I could tell he was still having trouble accepting the fact that he was married, especially to someone he didn't love. At some point, I felt someone nudging me. "Wake up, it's annoying." I hated being woken up while sleeping. But since Chase was the man I loved, I figured I should be patient with him. "Chase," I mumbled, "if you're not sleeping, then neither am I." He didn't reply immediately, so I threatened, "If you keep bothering me, I'll kiss you." That shut him up real quick. Then I reminded him that I had an important meeting the next day and needed to wake up at 6. "Make sure to wake me up," I said. Chase looked completely flustered. The next morning, I opened my eyes and saw Chase standing at the foot of the bed, fully dressed. He was staring at me, looking like he had something to say but didn't know how to start. I grabbed my phone and saw it was already 6:20. "Why didn't you wake me up?" "I was about to," he said. "Sorry, I'll make sure to do it next time." I raised an eyebrow at him. "You promised me you'd get used to this, right? You're my husband now. Part of being a husband is taking care of your wife." He reluctantly agreed. "Okay, I know." I smiled and stretched, pleased with how I'd handled it. "By the way, do you have anything to do after work today?" I asked. "No," he replied. "Great, then come pick me up from work." "You have a car, don't you?" I said, reminding him. "You need to get used to being a husband. It's normal for a husband to pick up his wife from work. Chase hesitated for a moment but finally agreed. Fine. I'll pick you up. I was a little pleased with myself. After all, if I was going to play this game, I was going to play it well. Later that day, I remembered something. By the way, there's a WV cake shop on the way from your office to mine. Make sure to pick up a matcha-flavored cake for me, I said. Chase seemed surprised. He hadn't expected me to know so much about his routine, but he didn't say anything. Actually, I didn't really care about the cake. I just wanted to give him something to do. He still didn't care about me, but I was determined to make him notice me in his life. Chase was slowly adjusting to his new role, following through with the duties of a husband as promised. I sent him a document that outlined all my habits, preferences, and my expectations for him. Make sure to be home by 6:30 every evening, it said. If you have overtime or social events, you need to inform me ahead of time. You must answer your phone whenever I call. If you're in a meeting or dealing with work, send me a message to let me know. When you go on business trips, bring me gifts and make sure you pick them out yourself according to my tastes. I made sure he memorized all of it. He wasn't happy, but I told him, if you don't memorize it, I'll kiss you. So of course he learned it all. After going through a few pages of the document, he complained. Why are your demands so much? Even the temperature of the bath water has to be 45 degrees Celsius. Don't ask so many questions, I said. Just follow the rules. He sighed. Why don't you try to understand my habits? This isn't fair. I smiled brightly at him. You like apples, oranges, and grapes. You don't like pears. You're not picky with food but prefer salty dishes over sweet ones, except when it comes to sweet and sour pork ribs. But don't say anything else. After that, he shut up and continued studying the document. My marriage to Chase wasn't exactly supported by everyone. My friend even tried to warn me. Chase loves Mira. Being with him is just going to be painful for you. I didn't get it. I'm married to the man I like. He married someone he didn't love. If anyone's going to suffer, it'll be him. They say forced marriages aren't sweet, but clearly the ones forced even more so. My friend couldn't argue with that. But then she added, he's still in love with Mira. What if Mira comes back? You'd do everything to keep him, even if it meant giving up everything for him. You'd be heartbroken, get kidnapped, lose a child, and in the end get nothing. He'd divorce you and you'd end up dead while he loses his mind. I was like, you need help. What kind of novel have you been reading? He grinned. Don't torture yourself with your feelings. I rolled my eyes. You know what? I'm into the strong and dominant type of love. I'll control everything in the relationship so no one can hurt me. Chase doesn't love me and that's fine. He just has to treat me well. If he dares to treat me badly, I'll make him treat me right. If he doesn't, I'll find someone else who will. But honestly, with how he's acting, I'm not quite ready to replace him yet. I live by one rule. No matter what, I can't let myself be wronged. I promised Chase that we'd divorce after 1 year. If by then he still doesn't love me, well, I'll have had a year of enjoying myself. So, under my firm control, Chase ended up cooking for me, picking me up from work, bringing me food, running the bath water for me, and even bidding for a $20 million necklace at the auction. In the end, I returned home happy to see the man in the kitchen making dinner for me. I sighed softly. Chase suddenly said, you know, you're kind of pitiful. I've decided to treat you better, he continued. After all, on our wedding day, the bride ran away and I was forced to marry someone I don't love. Chase glanced at me, signaling me to keep going. I won't need you to run the bath tonight. Chase, you have a habit of sleeping with the lights on, I said. For the past few nights, there's been a small night light on by the bedside. He gave me a hard stare. I'm not used to it. How about this? I'll buy you a sleep mask. He looked at me stunned. Alright, fine. I'll do it for you. Chase's cooking is actually pretty good. I complimented him. How do you cook so well? I practiced when I studied abroad, he said. See, every man who studies abroad is a good cook. I sighed a little. Such delicious food, but we might not get to eat it tomorrow. I'll make it again tomorrow, he said. Well, men always need a little praise. What about the day after tomorrow? Don't push it. I wasn't demanding too much. Besides, I wasn't the only one making sacrifices. I made your breakfast today, I reminded him. You know how much I love sleeping in, yet I forced myself to get up and cook for you. Aren't you touched? Chase remained silent for a long time. Finally he spoke. Lana, I've been very grateful for everything you've done since we got married. I'll try to meet your needs to make sure you're comfortable during this year. But can you stop dragging me into these things? After all the build-up, he finally got to the point. I smiled and added another piece of sweet and sour ribs onto his plate. Why are you saying that? I teased. I'm just a little shameless. I'm not a bad person. Besides, I love you, so I have to push you. Why would I push someone else? After my shower that night, I casually ordered Chase to dry my hair for me. Where's the blow dryer? I asked. No, that'll dry out your hair even more, he replied. Though he said that, he still took the towel from me. I remembered the ridiculous story my friend told me earlier that day and decided to take some precautions. Chase, you don't have to like me, but you can't hurt me, I warned. I'm pretty petty about these things. I always get even. I can be completely honest and do everything for you, but you can't really rip out my heart, my lungs, or my kidneys. Chase chuckled. When have you ever been that open with me? It's always been me taking care of you. I raised my finger and waved it a little. That doesn't matter. Then it clicked in his head. You keep saying you like me, but shouldn't it be you showing me affection? I stood my ground. Emotionally, you can't give me what I need, so you better make up for it by treating me well in other ways. Chase stayed silent, listening to my robber logic. I remember when I first met Chase, I had just graduated from college. My dad handed me the responsibility for managing the branch office, which was a big challenge and a great learning opportunity for me. Ellie's family is an old, prestigious one. It was Ellie's sister's birthday party that day. I went with my mom to the event, and that's when I first saw Chase. He had just returned from studying abroad and was a finance master. He had recently taken over his family's business and was at the peak of his success. I was a sucker for looks. When I first saw him, I was a little taken aback by how striking he was. When the elders introduced us, I politely greeted him. Then I wandered around on my own for a bit. When I got tired, I found a spot to grab a bite. Not far from me, there were 3 men and a woman talking. I overheard them chatting about a potential project collaboration. It was normal for work to come up in such settings. But every now and then the men would make crude jokes. Although they were subtle, they still made me uncomfortable. The woman frowned, clearly irritated, but didn't say anything. Being at Ellie's family event was enough to show the woman's status and social standing. But even with those gross jokes, she didn't have the courage to walk away. She still had to smile politely. But maybe because she really needed those clients. Or maybe because she was the only woman there. Women in this industry are rare and weak in power. Some men treat women like resources and show no respect. Maybe my gaze was too intense, because the man closest to me turned around and looked at me. Then he gave me a smile that seemed to have a hidden meaning. He walked up to me and said, "Hello, I'm the vice president of Company B. May I get to know you?" I had been looking at him, but my expression was probably unfriendly. Didn't he notice? No. I didn't think there was anything wrong with my answer. After all, rejecting someone is my right. But the man clearly wasn't happy. He quickly tried to justify himself. "No, you have a boyfriend." "No," I said, my patience wearing thin. He looked confused. "No boyfriend? Then what's wrong with getting to know each other?" "None of your business." He was fuming, his face turning pale with anger. Suddenly, a voice came from behind me. "She rejected you because she's not interested. What does having a boyfriend have to do with it?" I turned around and saw it was Chase. The man smiled easily. "Chase, I just think this young lady is really beautiful. I just wanted to get to know her," he said. Chase nodded. "When you like a girl, you shouldn't just focus on her looks. You should also pay attention to your own appearance. In public, you shouldn't laugh at others unless you can't help it." Chase's tone was calm and his smile remained soft. He was polite and courteous, as if the words just spoken weren't even his. He called over the security and had the group escorted out. The woman beside him seemed to know him. They exchanged a few words. Then he turned to me. "Auntie is looking for you. I'll take you to her." On the way, I curiously asked, "Who was that woman just now?" "She's a classmate from my time abroad," Chase replied. "She returned to China and started her own business." "Are you interested in her?" I didn't immediately understand what he meant. Chase continued, "She went on a government-funded scholarship, full scholarship, the same age as me, but graduated a year earlier." Before I could say anything, he added, "She just lacks background and opportunities, but her work skills are strong, and her company has great potential." Seeing how much effort he put into introducing her, I suddenly understood. He was helping his old classmate attract investment. I smiled lightly. "I think she's excellent too." After I said that, Chase handed me a business card. It was from the woman from earlier. I teased, "You even carry her card around with you?" He didn't try to hide it. "Just helping an old classmate out. Not only does she look good, but she's a decent person with a good sense of values." I took the business card. Ellie's family is a perfect match for the Lee family. Aunt Lee and my mom have been old friends for years. Whether for business or personal reasons, I was the most suitable match for an alliance. I talked business with Chase's dad, had tea with Aunt Lee, played chess with Chase's grandmother, and even played video games with Chase's little sister. One day when Chase came home, He happened to see me getting along with his family, laughing and having fun. He pulled me aside, swallowed, and hesitated to say something. Chase told me he had someone he liked. I felt like a clown. It was Mira, the girl he grew up with. But unfortunately, Mira was happily in a relationship with her boyfriend, Xander. Xander was a talented artist. And people in the arts are all about pursuing a romantic, beautiful kind of love. When I thought about it that way, I realized Chase was the clown. It instantly made me feel better. He had no way out, trapped by me. Chase asked, "Didn't you once like Zhong Ming?" I casually shrugged. That was just an excuse I came up with. At that time, I never thought I'd fall for you, Chase. Then I straightened up and said, "I found out you smoke. I don't like smokers." "Don't worry. I only had a couple of meals with Zhong Ming and we talked about work. Nothing flirtatious happened, so you don't need to feel awkward." Chase was speechless. Just when there was no progress in my relationship with Chase, I heard the news. He was getting married. To Mira. Mira, honestly, why not just stay with her artistic boyfriend? What's she coming to Chase for? I had to make a move. On the wedding day, in front of all the guests, Mira got in her ex's car and ran away. Yes, it was her ex I set up with her. But Chase didn't know that. And honestly, this isn't my fault. I didn't force the bride to run away. He insisted on waiting until after the wedding to get the marriage certificate, which clearly meant he wasn't serious about getting married. That day, Chase sat on the couch in the lounge, surprisingly calm. But when he twisted the cap and drank half a bottle of water, it exposed his frustration. I couldn't help but feel a little schadenfreude. "Chase, your wife ran off with someone." "Yeah," he replied indifferently. "You don't need to look so happy about it. Do you need help?" He stayed silent. I continued with my snarky comments. "Before tonight is over, this is going to be all over the place." He looked up, his brows furrowing. "What are you trying to say?" I smiled and said, "The bride ran off. You could find someone else, or better yet, marry me. I'll help you save face." He nodded and stood up. I should just leave and save myself the embarrassment. I stopped him. "Think carefully. It's one thing for you to embarrass yourself, but Ellie's whole family will be embarrassed too. Chase's family's image will suffer. Stocks will drop and you'll lose money. It's okay. I deserve it," he muttered. He still didn't take the bait. I had no choice but to give up. But just as he was about to leave, he suddenly turned around, and his attitude had completely changed. "Help me." Though I had no idea what made Chase change his mind, it didn't stop me from enjoying the moment. I smiled arrogantly. "You're begging me now?" "Begging you is the easy part." "I'm not satisfied," I teased. He sighed helplessly. "What do you want?" "Besides selling my body, I'll try to meet all your demands." What did he take me for? "That's what you said," I replied. "Then you'd better listen to me from now on." I smiled like a villain forcing someone into a corner. After the wedding, aside from work, I spent all my time clinging to Chase, building our relationship. Today, Chase's childhood friend returned to the country and hosted a gathering. In the private room, I was chatting happily with the Lee family's daughter. "Hey, is this Watch a League of Legends merch item?" I nodded excitedly. "You like League of Legends too?" "Yeah, a little. Sometimes I watch their competition live streams. The marksman players in League of Legends are really amazing." Chase's little sister loves gaming. I'd heard him mention it before. Of course, not only is he skilled, but he's also super handsome. He's basically my idol. She immediately pulled out her phone. "What's your game ID? Let's team up and play together." "I'm really bad at it. What if I hold you back?" She waved her hand dismissively. "No worries, I love playing with newbies. You can play support with me." "Thanks." When the sister left, we were both still excited. Chase's friend patted him on the shoulder. "Man, you're really lucky." On the way home, I was sitting in the car watching old game competition streams. Suddenly, Chase pulled the car over to the side of the road. His expression complex. The first time I saw Mira and Xander again, it was 5 months after I got married. They had also gotten married. But because of the rumors surrounding the runaway bride incident, they didn't have a wedding. Instead, they had a destination wedding with a private auction. Inside the venue, Xander was dressed in a sharp suit, with a string of beads in his hands, looking elegant and refined. But the eyes behind his glasses gleamed with a golden light, pointing at the refined scoundrel, Qingjin. What a coincidence. Chase glanced at him indifferently, not really interested in talking to him. Xander wasn't upset, maintaining a calm demeanor. The things that happened before were a little too wild. It made Chase misunderstand. I originally wanted to apologize, but I never got the chance. He said he wanted to apologize, but after all this time he still hadn't shown up. Could have sent a text. Chase wasn't angry, just lightly responded. It's fine, it's never too late to apologize now. Xander was momentarily speechless, but his smile didn't fade. Since you're married, you should be devoted to your wife, Miss Lana. A pure, lovely, and understanding girl like her should never have to endure any grievances. I was suddenly called out, and I pursed my lips. Something about those words hit my funny bone. Chase suddenly turned to me asking, "Are you happy?" Well, who wouldn't be happy when hearing compliments? If you've been wronged by me, then I haven't. Xander lightly chuckled and interrupted. You're too harsh. You should speak more gently to a girl. The auction started, and of course Xander and Mira were sitting not far away. Mira was a classical beauty, with a gentle and graceful aura. She and Xander actually made a good match. Chase softly called his name. Chase didn't respond, looking like he didn't want to deal with anyone. Mira awkwardly smiled, and shot a look at Xander that seemed a little helpless. Xander patted his hand reassuringly. It's fine. I leaned close to Chase's ear, whispering, I called you. Chase, speak properly. Does it bother you seeing Mira sitting with someone else? What are you thinking? He said. We're over and there are no feelings left. The more he said that, the more I felt like he was just pretending. In reality, he cared deeply, but he wouldn't admit it. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Why should I be the only one who feels bad? With that thought, I reached over and pinched Chase's waist, pressing hard. He let out a low grunt, clearly not expecting my action. But it was a public place, so he had to bear with it. He maintained a calm and composed posture on the outside, but some people were complimenting us, saying how loving we looked. I gave a polite smile in return, but the pressure in my hand didn't lessen at all. I didn't let go of my grip until a long while. Ah, feels better, I said. Chase let out a sigh of relief and rubbed his waist. I warned him, even if you have thoughts, keep them to yourself. After the divorce, if you dare to cheat, I'll make sure you regret it. And right now we're in public. The world's a big place, but no one has more face than I do. If you dare to slap my face, I will definitely slap yours back. Chase furrowed his brows in confusion. Did I do anything to make you misunderstand? I ignored him and pointed to the jewelry set on the display. I want that. Chase, buy it for me. When it comes to men's words, there's nothing more reliable than money. Do you really want it, or are you just angry? I sneered. When I'm angry, you better spend some money to calm me down. Don't be stingy and hold back from letting the man pay. You think the male leads in romance novels are like that because they were spoiled? He might be willing to break up with you, but he'll never be willing to waste the time, energy, and money he's already spent on you. The jewelry set started at a price of $10 million. As soon as Chase made a bid, Xander raised the price. I turned to look at Chase. The jewelry set was beautiful, and I really liked it. Chase's expression didn't change. Just buy it if you want it. Although he said that, after Xander raised the price, Chase boldly added $2 million. The meaning was clear. The highest bidder wins. The two men went head to head, and the price quickly rose to $23 million. The set was worth about $20 million. I suddenly found it a little amusing. Was he really competing with Xander? Or was he competing with Mira? These past few months had been too peaceful. Chase was probably still upset, smiling gently, but the way he tilted his head carried a provocative hint. I sneered and turned my face away. Go ahead, take it. He didn't notice my mood. No problem, he can't outbid me. Seeing that he was about to continue, I pressed his hand down. Normally I'm all playful and carefree, but this was the first time he saw me serious and cold, and Chase felt an inexplicable tension. He instinctively grabbed my hand. What's wrong? I don't want it anymore. Chase didn't know why, but his anxiety grew stronger. You didn't want it just a moment ago? I don't want it now. Is that a problem? Just give it to him. It's just a piece of jewelry. Just a man. I don't lack jewelry. In the end, Mira won the jewelry set. Sorry about that, she said, but the smugness in her eyes was obvious. I wasn't angry, keeping my smile polite and graceful. It's just a piece of jewelry. You like it, that's fine. I added pointedly, but if the price you pay exceeds its value, then it's not worth it. I've never liked making a losing deal, whether it's goods or people. At that moment, I overheard a few mocking voices nearby. Spending $30 million on this jewelry? Isn't that crazy? It's either someone with too much money to burn, or just a complete idiot. I can buy expensive things, but I won't buy something that's overpriced. I didn't know whose younger generation spoke without consideration, but they were quickly stopped by the elder beside them. Xander and Mira froze, their smiles disappearing, and they quickly settled down. The last item up for bid was an antique tea set, which was actually my main goal for attending the auction today. This set was far more valuable than that jewelry set. In the end, I won the bid at 83 million. On the way home, I kept a serious face. Chase tried to speak to me a few times, but I ignored him. The anger that had been dissipated earlier flared up again. "Give me your hand." I glared at him. Although Chase didn't know what I was going to do, he had an uneasy feeling. Seeing that he didn't move, I grabbed his hand, rolled up his sleeve and bit down on his arm. "Lana, you're like a dog. I bite dogs." I spat and pretended to shake the dog hair off my mouth. "Ah, that feels good. What are you really angry about?" I didn't respond to him. The driver stayed silent, not daring to speak a word. Once home, I poured myself a glass of water and said calmly, "Tomorrow let's get a divorce." "What?" Chase thought he had heard wrong. "Lana, I haven't upset you, have I? Since we got married, what haven't I done for you?" I nodded. "You've done well." "Chase, I just don't want to continue anymore," I asked, but all I got in return was a long silence. "Divorce," I said, growing frustrated. He lowered his head, murmured 2 words, "Not divorce." "Why?" I urged. "We said we'd wait a year before divorcing." "Ha, I knew you wouldn't say anything nice." Chase didn't know what happened. He just suddenly didn't want to get divorced. "Is it because you saw Mira today? Did you misunderstand something? I really have nothing with her anymore." I sneered. "What are you explaining to me for? Why are you angry?" "I'm not angry." The atmosphere was tense when suddenly there was a knock at the door. Chase stood still. I snapped, "Go open the door." He went out and brought in the takeout. It was a box of matcha cake. Chase explained, "You said that when you're angry I should spend money to cheer you up. I ordered the clothes and jewelry you like, but they'll be delivered tomorrow. You can have the cake for now." Actually, Chase wasn't wrong. He had met all my requests. Wasn't that what I wanted? Whether he loved me or not didn't matter. As long as he treated me well and fulfilled my needs, that was enough. I suddenly didn't want to get divorced anymore. "Are you still angry?" "I'm not angry." Chase sighed. "I'm not angry, I want to buy it for you." He was so pathetic. I almost felt bad. "You liked Mira, didn't you? I let you go. You should be happy." "I don't like her anymore." Chase asked. "She publicly ran away from the wedding and slapped Ellie's family in the face. Why would you think I'd still like her? Am I that cheap?" I said, "Not really. Didn't you fight for that jewelry just now because you were pissed at her?" Chase admitted, "At first it was because you wanted me to buy it. Later I did get angry during the bidding. But shouldn't I be angry?" he asked, genuinely confused. "After all, he treated me like that. I didn't even get revenge on him, and now you want me to not be angry?" I found myself agreeing with him somewhat. When I got married, the groom had run away, and I didn't beat him to the hospital. Chase suddenly straightened up. "Lana, is it because you think I shouldn't be angry and shouldn't hold a grudge? That I should have a deep and affectionate persona, so that it fits your imagination?" I froze. "No, that's not it. What are you angry about?" "I'm not angry. Lana, you say you like me, but I've never really believed it. Then I'll be better to you in the future." "That's not what I mean," he explained. "A lot of people have told me they like me. They think I come from a good family, have a high education and a successful career, that I'm capable of everything, and in love I'm deeply devoted. But that's just the image they've created of me in their heads. The truth is, I barely passed my physics exam with a score of 16. I've never learned any musical instruments, and I can't sing because I'm tone deaf. Also, I hold grudges. I'm jealous, and I have regrets. I envy my sister, because my dad treats her better than he treats me. Back in school, Xander offended me, so I secretly targeted him behind his back. So what you like is just a perfect version of me. A fictional persona you've created with your imagination. Do you understand what I mean?" I nodded. "I understand," I said. He was insecure. "Ah, if only I could give him some of my confidence." Chase nodded with a sense of relief, but also with a hint of sadness. "That's right. You just don't know the real me." I smiled softly. "How could I not know you? I've seen the way you grab food with your hands." "When did you see that?" Chase looked at me in disbelief. "I saw it a long time ago." Chase seemed to carry some kind of burden, maybe because of how highly others evaluated him. He always had this serious air about him, holding himself to strict standards. But when he was in front of his father, the burden was the heaviest. Chase's father was one of those strict patriarchal figures, who had very high expectations of Chase. Being able to turn a student who scored 16 in an exam into a high achiever was enough to show how formidable he was. Chase would get nervous just standing in front of him. Before we got married, Chase's mom invited me to visit Ellie's family. Chase and his dad were busy with work and came home late. The maid prepared a new meal for them. I was in the living room watching TV with Auntie. Meanwhile, the father and son of the Ellie family ate, both looking so serious. Chase calmly tried to pick up a piece of sweet and sour pork, but kept failing. It wasn't until Chase's dad stepped out to take a phone call that he finally relaxed, letting out a sigh of relief. He quickly grabbed a piece of pork with his hand and started chewing on it. In his hurry, he got grease all over his mouth. Can you imagine? When he heard his father's footsteps returning, he quickly threw the bone aside, wiped the grease off with a napkin, and acted like nothing had happened. My thoughts snapped back. Chase sat there calmly, looking dazed, but deep down he probably felt too embarrassed to face anyone. I continued complaining. Actually, you don't sleep very peacefully. You kick me a lot. I wake up in the middle of the night because of you. Sorry, I'll be more careful next time. It's fine, I always kick you back. Anything else? He suddenly covered my mouth with his hand. At this point, no one brought up the divorce anymore. I laid on the coffee table eating cake, while Chase kept complaining about the auction. Did you not see how arrogant Xander was? If you hadn't stopped me, he wouldn't have been able to win that set of jewelry. Then he added, I don't hate him because of Mira. I've never liked him since high school. You should stay away from him too. I silently looked at him without saying anything, and suddenly found Chase's carefree attitude a bit amusing. What are you laughing at? He asked. After a few days, Chase's dad and mom asked us to stay at their house for a few days. Chase had to leave for a business trip last minute, so I went back alone. Although Chase's dad and mom have a respectful and harmonious relationship, I still didn't quite like the atmosphere of Ellie's family. That evening, I was in the living room playing video games with Chase's younger sister. Sis, can you tell my brother to stop making me take extra classes? Ellie didn't do well on her exams in her first year of junior high. Chase had hired a tutor for her during the holiday to help out. I patted her head and said, your brother only wants to help because you did so poorly on the exam. But Dad says it's fine if my grades aren't good. In the future, my brother will take care of me. Ellie, being the youngest, is the most pampered in the family. Even Chase's usually serious and stern father turns into a loving father figure in front of her. I chuckled. So what if your brother doesn't want to take care of you? That won't happen. Although he's older than me, he's not handsome, has a bad temper, and always scolds me, but he gives me pocket money and buys me a lot of gifts. Chase's sister doesn't get much love. Mom and Dad say I'm the little princess of Ellie's family. When I get married, they'll choose the best man in the world for me and treat me well for the rest of my life. Hearing this, the smile on my face slowly froze. What did your brother say? My brother said, if I don't shape up, he'll send me off for a political marriage. I said, your brother wants you to study well because he cares about you. You may not have good grades, but you can't stop learning. You can learn to sing, dance, or paint, or you can be an athlete or a doctor. It's about what you want to do. I want to play video games. My brother said, if I get into college, he'll let me pursue a professional gaming career. I nodded and explained, your brother is right. Your parents are right too. But if you listen to your brother, you'll have more options when you grow up. Chase's dad and mom just want him to live an easy and happy life, preparing the road ahead for their daughter. But there's a generation gap in their thinking, which we don't always agree with. Just then, Chase walked in from outside. You're back, I said. He looked exhausted, nodded, and then explained. During the account check, there was an issue at the family company's branch. I had to go take care of it. Is everything okay? Yeah, everything's been resolved. That's good. He then turned to Ellie, who nervously hid behind me. Chase noticed and walked over to grab Ellie by the ear. Did you talk bad about me again? No, I didn't. Suddenly, Chase's dad appeared at the top of the stairs, and the lively noise stopped immediately. In almost an instant, Chase looked shocked. Chase's dad looked at him and said, come to my study. Got it. Ellie and I exchanged a glance, both of us feeling a bad premonition. Chase's dad rarely scolded anyone or yelled. He usually preferred talking things over. But his serious expression and commanding tone were enough to pressure anyone. When Chase returned to his room, there was a bruise on his forehead. It wasn't serious, but I guessed it might have been from throwing documents. I wanted to ask, but I was afraid he'd be embarrassed. I grabbed the medicine kit, quietly tending to his wound. He didn't say anything. Just let me take care of it. Didn't you say everything was resolved? When the problem occurred, there wasn't time to blame me. But now I'm getting it. A big company is bound to have some slip-ups. But thankfully Chase was thorough in checking everything. There were no serious consequences. In the end, even if something really goes wrong, it won't fall on Chase. Chase's dad is so angry, but it's just because he's worried about his family's interests being harmed. Your dad is terrifying. I think so too. Actually, you did great. I think so too. He's too strict. I think so too. I want to laugh at Chase. You have no shame. He raised his hand, gently pinching my fingertip. Let's go home. Home. The word sounds a little strange coming from Chase. He just got scolded. And it clearly wasn't appropriate to tell his dad that he wanted to leave. What if he gets scolded again? I'll have to say it. Beg me. I beg you, I don't want to stay here. How pitiful. But who told me I'm the bad guy? You can't even beg me for a little favor. Chase retorted. What request have I not fulfilled for you? I've given you everything except my body. Except the body, is that all I've given you? Except for the body, is that all I've given you? 3 minutes later, Chase was pressed onto the bed by me. His shirt lifted. Although I enjoy looking at handsome men, I only really look at their faces. Not very perverted. Really, but lately I've been seeing so many photos of abs. Wow, is this what it feels like to touch them? As my hand slowly slid downward, it was suddenly pressed down. Chase's cheeks turned red. Enough, I wasn't trying to make things difficult for him. It was a little embarrassing. Now that I think about it, Chase listens to me so much, half because of the promise he made before marriage to obey me, plus the pressure I put on him, and the other half is probably because of his dad. If we show any signs of conflict outside Lana, and rumors of a marital crisis, it would affect the family stock prices. Chase's dad would definitely be angry. The marriage connection would break off, and his dad would be even angrier. Thinking of this, I just had to ask. Chase raised an eyebrow. You haven't asked for anything outrageous, have you? I bought you clothes, jewelry, prepared gifts, picked you up and dropped you off at work, cooked the dishes you love, bought you the foods you like, checked in with you when I went out. Aren't these all just small things? Don't you often give me things too? Okay, the bathwater you wanted set to exactly 45 degrees Celsius. That was a bit too much. I nodded, dazed, my mind a little fuzzy. You're aware of that? Alright, you're right. Keep it up. At night, while sleeping, in a daze, I kept feeling someone pinching my face, and then poking it. My lips also felt itchy. I opened my mouth and bit down. I couldn't sleep well. Annoyed, I opened my eyes, and just happened to meet Chase's clear eyes. Her hand was still on my face and she blinked. Her expression was calm, not a trace of panic in sight. She lightly ground her back molars, a small habit she has when nervous. What are you doing? She calmly withdrew her hand. Not a blush or a skipped heartbeat. Your makeup doesn't seem to be fully removed. I smiled and stared straight at her. For a moment no one spoke. Eventually Chase couldn't hold on any longer. Awkwardly looked away. I couldn't bear to watch her be so uncomfortable. I sighed, got up to wash my face in the bathroom, and when I came back I purposely leaned close to her. Is it clean now? Almost. Waking up on the wrong side of the bed. Still feeling a bit irritated from being woken up. If you keep talking I'll kiss you. I had said the same thing on our wedding night, but now I didn't dare say it. I was afraid she'd really let me kiss her. It was a bit embarrassing. The next day Chase rarely slept in. I was about to get up, and she still hadn't moved. Suddenly her hand went to my waist. Can I skip work today? Her words made me think of, can I skip school? I wanted to laugh. Although we've always slept in the same bed, we've been very respectful of boundaries. This was the first time we were so close. Her pajamas weren't wrapped so tightly. I suspected she was teasing me. I hadn't slept much during my business trip. Taking a day off shouldn't be a problem, right? She was still debating it. I helplessly said, if I don't want to go, I won't go. Suddenly she seemed to think of something. Can you not tell me? Seeing my silence, she thought I wasn't agreeing. Please, I've had enough. That was when Chase and I took our first substantial step forward.